Let's have some words.
Let's have some words about subtle forms of self-harm when harm is hidden in everyday behaviours. When people think of self-harm, they often imagine overt actions like cutting or burning oneself. However, self-harming behaviours can take more subtle, less visible forms, making them harder to recognise and address. These behaviours, while less obvious, can be just as damaging to a person's mental, emotional, and physical well-being. Amongst other forms of subtle self-harming behaviours, I want to give a particular focus on the use of sex as a means of self-harming. It's a behaviour that often goes unnoticed or misunderstood. Subtle self-harm refers to behaviours that, on the surface, might not seem harmful, but are driven by a desire to punish, control, or numb oneself. Unlike more visible forms of self-injury, these actions can be integrated into daily life, making them harder to detect, both by the person engaging in them and by those around them. Some common examples of subtle self-harm include 1. Neglecting basic needs. This can involve skipping meals, denying oneself rest, or avoiding medical care. The person may do this out of a belief that they don't deserve to be healthy or cared for. 2. Overworking or over-exercising. Pushing oneself to the point of exhaustion, injury, or burnout can be a way of punishing the body or escaping from emotional pain. 3. Engaging in risky behaviours. This includes actions like driving recklessly, abusing substances, or putting oneself in dangerous situations, often with little regard for personal safety. 4. Using sex as self-harm. I particularly wanted to raise awareness of this type of self-harming behaviour. Engaging in sexual activity as a form of self-harm is one of the most complex and misunderstood behaviours. This can involve using sex to numb emotional pain, seeking out risky or degrading situations, or having sex without regard for one's own well-being or desires. Survivors of sexual abuse, for instance, may find it difficult to associate sexual contact with anything other than abuse. They may feel that loving relationships and sexual contact do not belong together, because historically for them, sex equals harm, and harm equals sex. Situations like this give rise to complex emotions and behaviours that may see the person subconsciously replicating the abuse dynamics, seeking out inappropriate relationships within familial settings, or situations where there is an imbalance of power between the parties. These are complex dynamics that are hard to navigate and understand. If you're in a relationship with someone who has suffered abuse, these are issues that will affect you too. Sex is a natural and healthy part of life, but when it is used as a means of self-punishment or as an escape from emotional pain, it can become harmful to both partners. People who use sex in this way may do so for various reasons. Some individuals may engage in sexual activity to distract themselves from feelings of sadness, anxiety, or worthlessness. The temporary pleasure or distraction provided by sex can offer a brief escape, but it often leaves the person feeling worse afterward. Individuals struggling with low self-esteem might use sex to seek validation or approval from others, believing that their worth is tied to their sexual desirability. This can lead to situations where they engage in sex not because they want to, but because they feel they have to. In some cases, people may engage in risky or degrading sexual behaviours as a way of punishing themselves. This might stem from feelings of guilt, shame, or self-loathing. with the person believing they deserve to be treated poorly. Some individuals might use sex as a way to disconnect from their emotions, especially if they struggle with feelings of emptiness or detachment. By focusing on physical sensations, they can temporarily avoid confronting their deeper emotional issues. The impact of subtle self-harm is that it can have serious long-term consequences, both physically and mentally. The person may experience chronic feelings of guilt, shame, or worthlessness, which can reinforce the harmful behaviours. Over time, these actions can lead to more significant issues such as depression, anxiety, or a complete breakdown of self-esteem. In the case of using sex as self-harm, the individual might also face additional risks, including sexually transmitted infections, unwanted pregnancies, and complicated or abusive relationships. Furthermore, the emotional toll of engaging in sexual activity that is not genuinely wanted or is harmful can be profound, leading to further emotional distress and alienation. Knowing how to recognize and address subtle self-harm is crucial to addressing it. Here are some signs to watch for. Consistently engaging in behaviors that put one's safety or well-being at risk can be a red flag. Feelings of emptiness or detachment. If someone frequently feels numb or disconnected from their emotions, they may be using self-harm to cope. Low self-worth. Chronic feelings of worthlessness or believing that one doesn't deserve happiness or care can drive self-harming behaviours. Aftermath of sexual encounters. Feeling regret, shame, or emptiness after sexual encounters, especially if these feelings are frequent or intense, could indicate that sex is being used as a form of self-harm. If you recognize these behaviors in yourself or someone else, it's important to seek help. Here are some steps to consider. 1. Acknowledge the behavior. The first step in addressing subtle self-harm is recognizing that it's happening. This can be difficult, especially if the behavior has become a coping mechanism. 2. Seek professional support. Therapists or counselors can help address the underlying issues driving self-harming behaviors. They can also help develop healthier coping strategies. 3. Build self-compassion. Developing self-compassion involves treating yourself with the kindness and understanding you would offer to a friend. This can help counteract feelings of worthlessness or shame. 4. Develop healthier coping mechanisms. Finding alternative ways to cope with emotional pain, such as engaging in creative activities, practicing mindfulness, or building supportive relationships, can reduce the reliance on self-harming behaviors. In conclusion, subtle forms of self-harm, including using sex as a means of self-punishment, can be difficult to recognize but are important to address. By understanding the signs and seeking help, it is possible to break the cycle of self-harm and move toward healthier, more fulfilling ways of coping with emotional pain. Remember, everyone deserves care, respect, and compassion, especially from themselves.
Lots of love from me, Wanda. I'm so glad you made it here today. Please give me another visit sometime soon. Please like and subscribe. Please let me know if there's any topic you would like me to cover. I'm always here for you.
Love-wise, Wanda, heal your heart, rise and prosper. In your strength you will find yourself and peace of mind.